Do you talk like a champion? Right here tonight on Wisdom Talk with Dr. Paul Kreitz. I'm Dr. Todd Williams joining you this Sunday evening as guest host of Wisdom Talk, and it is my pleasure and privilege to be with you tonight. I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to give just a couple of moments for everybody to get on tonight with Facebook. I know it takes a few minutes for notifications to go out. But tonight I want to talk to you about the talk of a champion. The talk of a champion. I don't know if you caught my teachings from last Sunday and Monday. I've been teaching on the champion's code last week, the law of consistency. I hope you caught that teaching. If not, you can go back and find it either on Facebook, on my page, or you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. So I hope everybody's had a wonderful day. It has been just outstanding weather here in South Carolina. It is gorgeous outside. Still daylight right now, even at 8 o'clock, and it has been a beautiful day. We had a fantastic day today in our household of faith here in South Carolina. Just a great time of worshiping the Lord, great time in the Word of God, and I'm going to teach you some things tonight that I've been talking about today. Let me stop for just a moment and greet everybody that's coming in. I am so glad you are here. Welcome aboard with me. Let me know if you're in here in the chat stream, all right? I don't always see everybody, and I don't always get to respond to every comment, but I am glad that you are here. Nancy Lee Gracie, glad you're here, Nancy. You are always so faithful and encouraging to all of us with Wisdom Talk. I really appreciate you. Hey, Jeff Patzer, glad you're here. Good evening to you as well, sir. Good evening, Marilyn Green. Glad you are here with us as well. Glad to see you, Marilyn. Hey, Robert Grimes. I'm glad you are here as well. Been praying for you, my friend. I'm glad you have tuned in tonight. Mike Cochran from Salem, Ohio. I'm glad you are here as well. Tonight we're going to be, it must be raining in Florida. We're going to have a fantastic time tonight. I want to talk to you about, and I entitled this Champion Talk. I'm working on my 4th book right now, and that more likely is the title of it, is The Champion's Code. Last week I talked to you about consistency and how that consistency is the champion's code that unlocks for you the future that you have imagined. So I hope you had time to decide this week what you were going to be consistent at. Last week I told you stop trying to decide where you're going to go or what you're going to do, and start deciding what you're going to be consistent at. What you're doing consistently is determining what you are becoming permanently. But tonight, I just want to take a few moments tonight with everybody that's coming in, and I want to talk to you about, I had originally titled this The Champion's Dialect, but I think I like the Champion's Talk a lot better. I was reminded this morning when I began into this and teaching my household of faith, how in 1 Samuel chapter 17, for many of you this may be a familiar story, we find that the armies of Israel were in a standoff with the armies of the Philistines. And the Bible says that the Philistines, they sent out their champion, and his name was Goliath. And he began to defy, or really he was talking smack, as they say, to the armies of Israel. And he would come out and say, you send out your champion and we will fight, and whoever wins between myself, Goliath, and your champion, whoever wins, the other will become servants to the other army. Of course, we know, if you've read 1 Samuel 17 or are familiar with this story in the book of Samuel, we know that this went on for many days, that Goliath who was the Philistines' champion, he would come out and talk to the armies of Israel. And of course, no one would arise to challenge Goliath until one day, a young boy came to bring some victuals, or as we call it sometimes in the South, or food to his brothers. He was sent by his father, and his name was David. He was just a young shepherd boy. And when he arrived, the champion Goliath came out to talk and to intimidate the armies of Israel. And David heard it. And when he heard it, he was shocked. David was shocked. Let me stop and say this while I'm in this train of thought with you tonight. There's a certain way that a champion talks. And there's also a certain way that a champion hears. Now, Goliath is talking the talk of a champion, but his talk has not fallen into the ears of someone who is a champion. When David heard Goliath talking, something inside of him clicked, and he was incensed by the whole thing. He's looking around going, what are you guys doing? Why are you tolerating this? Why are you putting up with this? In other words, what I'm trying to tell you as I start this out tonight, somewhere in this world, there's a situation, there's some kind of circumstance, some kind of problem that is awaiting your arrival. And at the moment that you arrive, see, somewhere in there, somewhere inside of you, God has designed for you to champion something. And there's a situation that is waiting on the champion to arrive. Of course, when David hears Goliath's talk, how he's talking, he says to everyone in the situation, why are you letting this uncircumcised Philistine defy the armies of the living God? Now, David is going to take this to a further step, obviously, because he goes to King Saul and he says, I'll fight him. You know, this is no small man we're talking about. The Bible, says that he's approximately 9 feet 9 inches tall, somewhere in that range. And this guy has a spear. He has a sword. He has a shield. And he's so big, he has another man that carries his shield for him. And David looks at this situation and he says, I can take this guy down. This is not a problem. Saul, listen, let me go out here and fight him. I have killed a bear and I have killed a lion. And this guy will fall just like them. So you have to understand something tonight as I'm starting to talk to you about this. There's a certain way that someone who has championed something, not just by their experience, but by the way they think. See, a champion thinks a certain way. And that's where I want to begin this with you tonight. So I hope that you'll be able to stay with me for a few moments tonight. And then tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be talking about the champion's talk. So there's 3 things that I've learned that a champion does not talk. Write these down for yourself. A champion, he does not talk doubt. The second thing that I've found is a champion does not talk defeat. And the third thing is that a champion, he doesn't talk discouragement. Now, not everyone has, mastered these areas of their life, but as you grow in the Lord, there are certain things that you're going to have to get victories over. Fears, insecurities, a propensity to become discouraged, whatever it may be. There's something that you have to overcome. And I've been talking to you over the last couple of weeks about this, how that we need some people that in the body of Christ who will become champions. Champions over darkness. Champions over wickedness. Champions over evil. Sometimes people just simply need to champion certain things that are in their life. Let me give you an example of something tonight. Last week I was talking with you about a champion's code, the law of consistency, and I have shown you a medal that I was given for winning the state youth U16 soccer championship. And I'm going to show you something else here. Now check this out. I pulled this out a while ago of my closet. This is a trophy, all right? This is a huge trophy. I mean, it's like, it won't even fit in the screen with me, all right? This trophy, though, I don't like this trophy. And it's not because of the size of it. You see all the medals that I got for that year, right? We won the counties, the region, all of those things. You know, here's this big, huge trophy. But I don't like this trophy. You know why? Because right down here on the bottom it says second place. That trophy sits in the top of a closet that I rarely go in. It's not out everywhere else. I've got some other little trophies back here from different years that were special memories to me. But I don't like to be reminded of this trophy. If you've ever championed something, this was 2011, 10 years ago. My soccer team won second place in the state of South Carolina for our age division. I don't like looking at that trophy. Now, some people would say, well, that's a great accomplishment. Yeah. If you've finished third before, but I won the state championship in 2009, and 2 years later there to finish second, I wasn't happy about that. I'm using this as an example tonight. A champion, he doesn't think in the terms of defeat. Whatever arena you're in, or whatever you're entering into, you can't go in with defeat on your mind in the first place. Because if you do, you've already lost. You know, just like that trophy, I hide that trophy away, not because I'm embarrassed of it or ashamed of it, but because I really don't want to be reminded of it. Because there were things that I took away from that day as a soccer coach. Yeah, I learned from the experience. But it was like working a whole season to become the first loser. I'm saying all of this to you tonight because there's a certain way that a champion thinks, number one. There's three things in both directions I'm going to give you tonight. The first three that I already told you, they were what I call the 3 Ds. The 3 Ds of what a champion doesn't talk. He doesn't talk doubt. He doesn't talk doubt. Mark 11 and verse 23, Jesus said, whatsoever things, he said, if anyone says to a mountain, if you say to a mountain, be removed, and be cast into the sea. And he said, and doubts not in his heart, but believes those things which he says, it will come to pass. Jesus said, you will have whatever you say. There's certain things that I've learned not to talk doubt. If you understand the dynamics of what Jesus was teaching his disciples in Mark chapter 11, I was teaching on this morning, how that Jesus walked by a fig tree and he found no fruit on it. And he said to the fig tree, no man eat fruit from you ever again. The next morning they are walking by and the disciples see the tree, and Peter says, look, it's withered up from the very roots. And they were astonished. And Jesus said to them, have faith in God. Some translations say, have the God kind of faith. And that's when Jesus said, you know, if you were to say to a mountain, move, it will obey you. There is a certain law. Listen to me very closely on this. There is a certain law in the earth that when you speak to certain things, it affects them. Somebody brought up in my household of faith this morning that, and I've known that this is a scientifically proven fact, you can talk to plants. And, you know, people talk to their house plants. Now, let me stop for just a minute and tell you this. When I first started reading the Bible, I thought, this is the craziest book ever. You know, I started off reading in Genesis, and I thought, here's two naked people in a garden. They eat a piece of fruit, and the whole world falls apart. And then they have two sons, and one gets jealous over the other one and kills the other one. And I thought, this is a crazy book. And then I get over here into Mark chapter 11, and I'm like, now Jesus, he's talking to trees. You know, this just seems crazy. But there's a certain law that's here in the earth. And somebody brought up this morning that you can speak to plants, and some of them they will grow better. I'm telling you all of this because I have learned that there's a certain way that a champion talks. And I'm going to back up just a minute and go back to Goliath and David. When Goliath talked, there wasn't a champion in Israel. And they were all intimidated by his speech, by what he said. It's not just what he said, but how he said it. When David shows up, David has both the talking and hearing of a champion. And when he hears it, he's like, oh no, this ain't happening. Something inside of him clicks and he says, I'm going to challenge that. And David is so bold in this situation that he doesn't approach it with any weapons of warfare like Goliath has. Matter of fact, he sizes up the situation and he looks at Goliath's sword that's hanging on Goliath's hip and he says, you see that sword? I'm going to take it off of you, and I'm going to take your own sword and I'm going to cut your head off. See, this is how a champion thinks. So that's my first thing to you tonight. A champion learns to think. And these are going to be 3 T's. He learns how to think, then he learns how to talk, and then he learns what he needs to tame. See, a champion is not really concerned as much about his competition. This is something I've been sharing with my household of faith and all those who are entrepreneurs in my household of faith. I gave them a word from the Lord a couple of weeks ago, and I told them that God is wanting you to stop considering your competition. Stop looking at your competition. Stop looking at, those of you that are business owners. Stop looking at the other businesses that are bigger, or the ones you think, I can't compete with that. Because God's not asking you, listen to me, God's not asking you to beat them or to defeat them. He's simply asking you to believe him. That's David's approach to the situation. He realizes, he says to Goliath, you come at me with a sword, a spear, and a shield, but I come to you in the name of the Lord. I come to you in the name of the Lord. See, a champion, when he talks, it's because the reason that he talks the way he talks is because the way he thinks. I'm telling you something tonight, that something has to change in your thinking. You have to begin to think like a champion. What does David say to Saul again? Saul, the king of Israel, he tries to outfit David in his own armor. And David says, I can't go in these because I haven't proven these. But he recalls past situations. I've overcome a lion and a bear. I've been a shepherd. And when a lion came out of the woods and grabbed one of my lambs, I didn't just let him run off. Listen to what I'm telling you here tonight. David said, I didn't just let the lion run off with the lamb in his mouth. No, I chased him down. I mean, you got to think how this guy thinks. I chased him down. And I grabbed him. And I took the lamb from his mouth. And then I broke his neck. This is not a guy that's going to run from a situation. He's not going to lay down and just let things happen. He gets into the middle of a situation. This is how a champion thinks. He gets into the middle of a situation because he realizes that he's not competing with anything else than himself. I hope you just caught that. See, why did I use this as an example, this big trophy back here? Because it wasn't that I lost that day to a competitor. It was because I could have made different decisions that would have determined a different outcome. Now, sometimes you lose, okay? Sometimes you lose a battle, but that doesn't mean you always lose the war. But that's why I don't like that trophy. Because I know I could have made different decisions that day that would have possibly changed the outcome. It was my thinking. See, I'm not competing with someone else. I learned this from coaching for many years. I don't try to play someone else's game. I simply play mine. I don't conform to theirs. This is what David is doing. See, Goliath is playing a game. See, sometimes your enemy is playing a game with you. You have an enemy. The Bible says your adversary, the devil. He's not God's adversary. He's not even in the same category to compete with you or with him, but with you. Peter says he's your adversary. He walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. I'm not really concerned about my enemy. I'm more concerned with myself and how I'm going to approach the situation. Now, I'm telling you all of this because, number one, my thinking must be the thinking of a champion. How does a champion think? Well, I began to teach you last week. He thinks in the terms of consistency. Because a champion knows that whatever I do consistently, I will become stronger at. Anything that you're doing consistently, you're going to become stronger at. He knows that in his thinking. And that thinking of maintaining consistency begins to unlock for you a future that you have imagined. What's going on in the mind of David here as he approaches this situation with Goliath? He's already imagined the outcome, because he tells Goliath, today you're going to fall and I'm going to cut your head off. And he says, and the fowls of the air, the birds of the air, they're going to eat your body. I mean, this is what he's already imagined in his mind. And he has consistently, listen to me very closely in this, David consistently, anytime he was challenged in any situation like this, he consistently hit it head on. He didn't back down. See, this is what you will begin to do. When you begin to think like a champion, you will begin to talk like a champion. And what you will begin to talk is the future that you're imagining. Now, some people may call you a dreamer or just, optimistic or whatever, but I talk the future that I imagine. If I've imagined that I'm going to be a millionaire, let's say, then I can't be talking doubt, or I can't be talking broke out of my mouth. I had to begin to learn that I couldn't say things like, I can't afford that. I rather changed it and said, I can afford anything I want. Now you may say, well, are you lying to yourself, Todd? No, I'm not. Because at the moment that I stopped saying, I can't afford that, and I started saying, I can afford anything I want, I found that my mind would start finding a way to get there. See, you're not going to talk. This is wisdom talk for Sunday night. You're not going to talk any different than you think. Your words matter. This is what Jesus is teaching his disciples in Mark chapter 11. That your words matter. What you're saying completely matters. Don't talk doubt. Don't talk defeat. And don't talk about discouragement. Don't talk them. I had to learn to stop talking my discouragement. I used to fight against discouragement. Felt discouraged many, many days of my life. And I talked about it, and I talked about it to everybody around me. But I had to learn to stop talking that. Bishop Kreitz, Dr. Kreitz, however you refer to him, I refer to him as Papa Kreitz. He always said it this way. What you think about, you bring about. And also what you talk about, you bring about. It will come into your life. And the more you talk about a problem, the more you're magnifying it. I talk the future that I'm imagining. Because that's what I'm thinking about. No champion boxer. Let's take a champion boxer. He never sees himself prior to a fight being defeated. What he sees is the other guy falling. That's the way David is doing. I hope you're following me with this tonight. David sees Goliath falling. That's what he sees prior to it happening. He sees, I'm going to take Goliath's sword off of his hip and I'm going to cut his head off. And then I'm going to see birds come down and eat his body. I mean, this sounds like a pretty gruesome scene. But I'm telling you this because this is how a champion thinks. And because he thinks that way, he talks that way. David recognized when he walked into the camp of Israel, he recognized that yes, Goliath is a champion. He talks like one. He's got big talk. But he hasn't met a greater champion. No one would challenge Goliath. See, there are situations right now that need to be challenged. They may be in your life. They may be in our nation. There's a lot of things that are we're facing as challenges in our nation. And the challenge has not met a champion yet. Someone who's not afraid. Someone who's not intimidated by the situation. Jesus said, you will have whatever you say. And I will tell you this. You can recognize a champion by the way he talks. What he talks. How he talks. Because there's a certain confidence that's in a champion's speech. You know, if you would have told me 30 years ago that I would be doing something like this, I would have laughed you down. Matter of fact, if you had told me that I would get up and speak in front of people, I would have laughed you down. The only thing that was keeping me from the future that I am living now was I was afraid or fearful, possibly of failing or, saying the wrong thing. I was afraid of what other people would think. You have to begin to understand there's a way that a champion talks. And that's why I've called this tonight Champion Talk. What you speak is because it's what you think. And what you think is because it's what you believe. And you believe what you believe because of what you've heard. I speak what I speak because of what I think. And I think what I think because of what I believe. And I believe what I believe because of what I've heard. I've found this. You will always move towards what you think and believe. You will always move towards what you think and believe. You receive what you believe in this life. Jesus said, if you doubt not in your heart, but believe those things that you say, it shall come to pass, for you will have whatsoever you say. Something I found very interesting a couple of years ago, I heard Dr. Kreitz say, he said, we don't get what we love in life. We get what we believe. We don't get what we love in life. We get what we believe. He had to explain that to me. I'm telling you all of this tonight on this Sunday night because here we are in the month of April already in 2021. And there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of situations that could be yet ahead of us that we have no idea or clue of. I'm sure for me to say that, many of you would say, yeah, I can believe that because 2020 blindsided a lot of people. I remember prior to 2020, people were saying, 2020, the year of perfect vision. And I was like, no, it's not going to be the year of perfect vision. If you're waiting to get perfect vision at 2020, you're going to be too late. You've got to get it beforehand. I said that I don't know how many times. Things blindsided people. not being prepared for the situation. But I was saying things in the opposite of, I will prosper in a famine. I've been saying that for the longest time. God will make me like Joseph. I will prosper in a famine. Last year devastated a lot of businesses, a lot of people. It was my best year financially thus far in my life. Why? Because I've been saying I will prosper in a famine. I'll be like Joseph. I'll be like Jacob. I'll prosper in a famine. I say that because I believe that. And I believe that because I think that. And that's why I say it. This is not hard. Jesus said if you say to a mountain, it'll obey you. This is not a difficult thing. I don't know what future you're imagining, or what outcome you're wanting, or what thing it is you're desiring or dreaming of. But I understand this. There's some keys to walking as a champion. See, I'm talking to you tonight about talking like a champion, but moreover, you're going to have to walk like a champion. You know, when a champion walks out, you know, a champion fighter, when he walks out to the ring, he doesn't walk out, you know, all slumped over and his head down. He walks out with his shoulders back, his chin up, ready. David realized, I don't need a lot to defeat Goliath. See, some things have presented themselves as big challenges to you. They look huge. They look like an insurmountable mountain. They may look like a Goliath to you. But David sizes up the situation and he's like, I don't need a spear. I don't need a sword. I don't need any of these things. I'm going to come at you in the name of the Lord. And he takes his sling and he finds five smooth stones. I preached a message years ago about the 5 smooth stones. There's something that's weathered, worn. And he sinks one right into the forehead of Goliath. See, a champion learns to talk the fight long before he ever enters the fight. He's talking the fight before he ever enters the fight. He's talking what's going to happen in the fight. That's what David was doing. He's already telling Goliath. You know, David is looking for Goliath wants just somebody to challenge him. Come challenge me. Come challenge me. David says, this isn't going to be much of a challenge because today you're going to fall. The worst thing that you did today, Goliath, was to get out of your tent and come out here and start talking, because today you're going to die. See, when a champion, listen to me real closely tonight, and I'm going to be closing out here in just a moment. When a true champion shows up, the whole situation changes. And I'm telling you this tonight because somewhere inside of you, there's a champion that needs to be awakened. A champion that needs to be awakened. There is a problem. There's a situation, there's a circumstance that is waiting on your arrival. Something that you have been called to change. But you can't change it until you begin to think like a champion and you begin to talk like a champion. And the last thing that I was going to tell you tonight, a champion learns how to think, to talk, and then he learns what he needs to tame. See, a champion boxer, he works out in front of a mirror and he looks for his inconsistencies. And he knows he's got to change those inconsistencies. But he also gets for himself a coach. I was telling my household of faith today, and I've told the soccer teams that I've coached, I said, who's the greatest golfer in the world? And all the kids that I've coached in soccer, they always say, "Oh, Tiger Woods," almost unanimously. Tiger Woods. I said, "Did you know Tiger Woods has a coach? But did you know that if Tiger Woods played his coach, that his coach can't beat him? So what does he need a coach for?" Tiger Woods pays a coach, probably very well, probably millions of dollars, to tell him everything he's doing wrong. So this is why some people, they can't become a champion, because they can't hear what they're doing wrong. A coach, that's what a coach is for. A coach is not your cheerleader. He can tell you the things that you need to change. In other words, the things that you've got to improve upon, because you're not always going to see it. I literally have done this before. I asked Dr. Kreitz, "What am I doing wrong here?" And he could tell me. Don't expect someone to just tell you, because a lot of times you can't handle it. Sometimes you've got to ask, "What am I doing wrong here? What is it going to call? What is it going to take for me to move to the next level?" And then you've got to have a willing ear to be able to listen to it and then decide to change it. That's why a boxer works out in the mirror. He's got to see his own inconsistencies, because he's not competing with somebody else. He's competing with himself. That's how a champion thinks. A champion, he's not, my competition is not everyone else. I'm competing with myself. He has to begin to tame his fears, his insecurities, whatever it is. You have to tame them. That's why David didn't have a problem telling King Saul, "I've killed a lion and I've killed a bear. And Goliath, he's not going to be a problem." He's already tamed his fears, his insecurities. He's not going to enter the situation intimidated or fearful. That's why he grabs up a stone. It's not even a rock, a stone. He's going to take on a giant, a 9'9" warrior. Not just any guy, not just some tall guy. This guy is a champion of the Philistines. I mean, when they send him out, they send out their champion. This is the guy that they could rely on to win any battle for them. And David, I mean, do you see this? How David, he's like, "I'm going to take this guy down with just a little stone." I'm telling you that tonight, as I'm closing right here. I hope you'll join me back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for Wisdom Talk. I'm going to continue to talk to you the talk of a champion. Because when you get around a champion, someone who's a champion, and they talk the talk of a champion, it's going to affect you, because what you hear, you'll begin to believe. And then when you begin to believe it, you'll begin to think it. And then when you begin to think it, you'll begin to speak it. So it goes into the ear, to the heart, to the mind, to the mouth. See, when you get around somebody who is a champion, they don't talk like everybody else talk. That's why when Jesus would teach, it says that they were astonished at his doctrine, because he didn't talk like everybody else. He talked the talk of a champion. That's why when he spoke to the fig tree, it's in complete confidence. It's in complete faith. He's trying to teach his disciples there's a certain way that you're going to talk, and you're not going to sound like everybody else. And if you do sound like everybody else, then we got a problem. There's a problem. I'm Dr. Todd Williams, joining you tonight. It's been my privilege and pleasure. I'm going to have to get off of here and go help my wife with her next book she's about to publish. But I do want to remind you, everybody who has been monthly partners with Dr. Kreitz, Dr. Paul Kreitz, and Dr. Angel Kreitz. I do want to remind you tonight, if you've been a $33 a month partner with them, I want to just encourage you to continue to partner with them, continue to sow seed, continue to show support to Purpose International. I don't come on here to try to, raise money for them, but I do try to raise the awareness that when someone is in a time of need, that we can be there and be a champion in that situation. Sometimes the greatest thing that we will do in life may not be noticed by the crowds. But if there's a situation that I know that I can reach into and change and help and be an aid in, then I'm more than willing to do that. Tomorrow night, don't miss tomorrow night, because I just barely brushed the surface with you tonight on the talk of a champion. I'll see you back tomorrow night. Love you all. Don't forget to join me 8 p.m. for Wisdom Talk. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.